Hello and welcome to another Marvel Snap video. Today we have more mystery cards from Pool 2 to open, and we'll see what we can build with the new cards. First up is Sabretooth. When this is destroyed, return it to your hand. It costs 0. Now an interesting thing about this card is if you manage to increase its power while on the board, it will maintain that power buff, and there are some cool things you can do with this card. Next up we have Killmonger. On reveal, destroy all 1-cost cards. A very powerful control tool and shuts down Khazar decks pretty handily. This will be a great inclusion to the collection. Next up we have Warpath. Ongoing, if any of your locations are empty, +4 power. A very powerful individual card, similar to Namor, except a little more flexible because you can have other cards in this location. But beware of locations like Central Park that put squirrels all over the board. It will turn Warpath off. Then we have Morbius. Ongoing, +2 power each time you discarded a card this game. This card tracks from the entire game, so even if you play this on, say, turn 5, if you discarded cards previous to that, it will get the power and is a fantastic addition to the discard archetype. Next we have the Infinaut. If you played a card last turn, you can't play this. So what this typically means is you have to skip your turn 5 to play this card, but it's 20 power and should win a location very easily. There's also sneaky things you can do with it, like pull it out of your deck with a Jubilee. Next up we have Shang-Chi. On reveal, destroy all enemy cards at this location that have 9 or more power. A very effective control tool that can just devastate the opponent's side of the board. And it's important to pay attention to who reveals first, because on the final turn, you can flip this up if you're revealing second and destroy your opponent's 6-cost play. And lastly, we have Rhino. On reveal, ruin this location. So similar to Scarlet Witch, but instead of changing it, it just becomes a ruin. It has some utility, but it's a little weaker due to the energy cost. With that, let's see what we can build. So here's the deck we ended up coming up with. We are going to be playing around the Infinaut, a 20 power card with the stipulation that you can't play a card on turn 5. Now this does make it fairly obvious that this is coming, but it's a decent way to win 2 cubes, and sometimes you can catch your opponent by surprise by them thinking they can beat the Infinaut, and you actually hit them with some of our tech cards like an Enchantress or a Shang-Chi to end up coming over their even bigger plays. One of the cards that also enables the Infinaut is Sunspot, an incredibly powerful 1-cost card that gains +1 power for each unspent energy each turn. Because we intend to skip turn 5 most games, this will actually increase by 5 power and still give you extra power on the board despite the fact that you just ended your turn. Now, we are playing America Chavez just because we want to know if we have the Infinaut ahead of time, because you don't want to blindly pass turn 5 without the Infinaut in hand. And this ensures we can't draw an unplayable Infinaut on turn 6 if we end up making a play on turn 5. Rounding out the deck are a few value cards, such as Iceman to disrupt our opponent, Angela to just be a powerful 2-cost card that grows in power, Scorpion, which reduces the power of cards in our opponent's hand and makes it a little bit easier to win locations. We are playing Armor to respect the Killmonger. Since Sunspot can be a lot of our power, this is a way to protect the Sunspot and make sure that we can rely on the power it's generating rather than have it surprise destroyed by a Killmonger. We then have Lizard, just an efficient 5-power 2-cost card that also combos with the Enchantress that we're playing to turn off its own ability. Storm locks down a location, which means you only have one of the other 2 to win if you're ahead in the flooded lane. And because Sunspot can sit in this location and grow over time, even if your opponent is ahead of you initially, you can get ahead later in the game. And lastly, Jessica Jones. just as an efficient 4-cost, 8-power card, and is a great follow-up to the Storm since you can't play cards to the location after that turn 4 anyways, assuming you played the Storm on turn 3. With that, let's hop into some games. Our first location is the Cloning Vats, which is going to add a copy of whatever we play there to our hand. So let's start spamming some Iceman. Get as many cards in our opponent's hand, increase his cost as possible to disrupt their flow. We also have the Infinaut, so we will be able to take turn 5 off if we want to. Ooh, and our opponent's doing the same to us, so this is going to be an interesting game. We do have a Shang-Chi if they commit anything large early. It kind of conflicts with the Infinaut, but we're not for sure going to play this yet. For now, let's continue Icemanning. Okay, so they go with an Angela this time. Now, we don't want to fill up Cloning Vats too much just yet. This could be an opportunity to Storm. It all depends if they end up committing another card to the Cloning Vats here. Let's just turn this off so they can't keep repeating the effect. So they commit 2 cards to the board. Trying to get another Iceman, but we put an end to that. And they play a Yondu, destroying our America Chavez. With all of these 1-cost cards, it's very unlikely that they are running a Killmonger. So Sunspot might be the perfect play here. It'll gain 3 additional power when we end the turn now, and if we pass turn 5, it'll gain 5 more power. So let's actually snap before we reveal the Sunspot. Oh, and they just retreat. Victory. But we had the perfect turn 6 follow-up. Very unlikely that they are going to be able to come up over the Infinaut in Savage Land, since they already had good power here, and the board is full of Raptors. We would most likely have won with Infinaut to the right. Let's hop into another one. Our first location is Lumeria, which is going to keep no cards from being revealed this turn. We have the Storm. Let's go ahead and commit the Iceman in case we draw a 2-cost card for next turn. We're going to want to curve out into Storm. Okay, we actually do draw the Sunspot. We can get that rolling now, since we have the Infinaut in hand. Our ideal next draw is Armor. We have 2 turns to find it. They play a Lizard of their own. The Olympia drawing us those 2 extra cards just really helps us formulate a game plan. Ooh, and we do draw the Armor. They are going to win Luke's bar by default here. Let's hope the Infinaut is enough. Oh, and they end up storming. Interesting.
Wind, aid my hand.
Do they have a Killmonger to follow this up? It's interesting that they chose to storm our lane that already contained a Sunspot, and they will reveal first, which will make our armor just a little bit too slow. But we can play the Angela to Olympia, pass on turn 5, and follow that up with an Infinaut for 23 power. No, they go with a Jessica Jones, which is not going to be enough. So let's snap on them before we reveal that we're passing turn 5, because that's a pretty obvious play. I would have preferred to snap last turn, but the fear of Killmonger was real. They end up staying in and playing a Warpath, but because they don't have a location empty, they are not going to be able to get the bonus from it. Now, the scary play would be if they Shang-Chi. Can we avoid that? We could put 11, 16 power, which is not that much. Let's stick with our Infinaut. If we get Shang-Chi'd, we get Shang-Chi'd. Oh, and they end up just retreating. Victory. Passing the turn 5 is pretty obvious. They definitely knew what was coming and clearly couldn't beat it. Let's hop into another one. The first location is Kiln, which is kind of like it's already been stormed for us. So we can go Angela into Scorpion into Jessica Jones. The next location is the Hub, giving us a Carnage, which we probably won't be able to leverage. We'll play down the Angela, make sure we can win this location. And they go with an Ant-Man. Interesting that they're not fighting over this location. We can play the Scorpion. And we could get cute with the Iceman and try and disrupt their hand a bit. Or we can commit a bit more power to the Hub to make sure we win with the Infinaut. Let's go that route. Ooh, so they are going to win Luke's bar. But I don't think they're going to be able to beat 20 power. Especially after Scorpions reduced the power of the cards in their hand. The Mr. Fantastic's at full power, so that means that's what they drew for turn. So they go with a Colossus and a Quinjet, but so far we haven't seen them add any cards. Let's snap and let's pass. What we might be able to do here is surprise take Luke's bar away from them and win by a higher difference in Kiln. We're ahead by 8. If we were to go Lizard Enchantress, we'd be at 11. We'd disable both of these. And they're revealing first. I think that's actually the play. They stayed in, so for some reason they're confident. But if we turn off all 3 of these ongoing abilities, they won't be winning Luke's bar anymore, and it'll just be who wins this location by more, and these cards are not very powerful with their ongoing abilities removed. And they play an Iron Man. Well, good try. The Enchantress is going to neuter the entire side of their board. And once again, showing what a house the Enchantress is with all these powerful ongoing abilities running around. We even turn off our Lizard for good measure. And that's an easy 4 cubes. Victory. The first location is the Nexus, so we're either going to want to get a fair amount of power into there or turn it off with Storm. For now, we'll lead with the Iceman. Let's maybe not play to the Nexus so we can play higher impact cards there. We have the Infinaut again. Ooh, and Mer Island is going to want us to play additional cards there. Let's go with the Angela. Now we're going to wish we had held the Iceman for a bit, but there's too much opportunity to mess up the opponent's curve. Okay, and they play a Bucky Barnes. So what we actually get to do here is play our armor, which will prevent cards from being discarded, and now this is only a 1 power play, eating up one of their spots in the Nexus. They play a Scorpion, reducing the power of the cards in our hand, but we took 5 potential power away from them with the removal of the Winter Soldier being a possibility. So we can go with a Lizard, put some extra power into Mer Island, buff up the Angela, or if we would like, we might want to Infinaut the Nexus. So let's actually just go with the Lizard there, make sure we have as much power in there as possible. And let's actually snap ahead of time here. We'll be able to skip turn 5 and play the Infinaut, so let's make sure that we get our cubes ahead of time here, because they'll likely retreat. So they play Death Block, which won't be enough. Now we have a Jessica Jones, which we could play, but Infinaut's 19 power into the Nexus should be plenty to win this game. In hindsight, we may have wanted to play the Angela to the Nexus to get some extra power there, but we would have ideally wanted to turn this off with Storm. So they go with a Warpath, which is pretty big, and they're going to take some power away from us into the Nexus when they play the 4th card. But our 19 power should be very large, and we already have a pretty good lead in Mer Island.
Opponent snapped.
They think they can beat the Infinaut if they're snapping back, which is a bit concerning. They go with a Sentinel and a Killmonger, which does kill our Iceman. Ooh, and gives them the Nova buff. But our Infinaut comes up just slightly higher, even with the -1 power from the Scorpion, and we win the Nexus and the Vault for 8 cubes. Just showing the power of Infinaut. 19 power on a single card almost beat their entire board at 22. So even with just a little bit more power, we were able to come up over them. I hope you enjoyed the games and got to see the power of the Infinaut. Unfortunately, Shang-Chi didn't really pop off for us, but that didn't prevent us from winning our games. If you have any questions or feedback for me, make sure to leave those in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to get back to you. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.